incredibly busy time during the semester. We're so excited as fans of Crip Conversations to be. So very briefly, we're going to start by just introducing who you'll be hearing from, and then give a little notes, some content warnings, a brief outline, etc. Before we jump in. So I should have started by saying, this is Alexis, and now I will say, I am Alexis. I use she, her pronouns. I am a white woman with short, ranging from brown to auburn hair, depending on how much dry shampoo is in it. I have big glasses and big earrings, and I'm wearing a blue sweater, and I'm in front of a beige wall. And then I'm the director for Kinsong, and I also identify as disabled through mental disability and chronic illness. And I will pass it to Molly Roy.
Hello, this is Molly. I'm Molly Roy. I use she, her pronouns. I am a white woman with long, straight, light brown hair. I am wearing dark frame glasses, a black top, large hoop earrings, and I am sitting in front of a burgundy curtain. I am one of the dramaturgs and choreographers for Kinsong, and I will pass it over to Shannon Woods.
Hello, this is Shannon. My name is Shannon Woods. I use she, her pronouns. I am a white woman with long, blondish, brownish hair, also wearing a white turtleneck, and I'm in front of some books, and you can see part of a clock in my background and blind. So kind of a lot going on. And I am the other dramaturg and choreographer for the project. And I will go over now to pass it to Ali.
Hi, this is Ali. My name is Ali Papa. I am the composer and sound designer for Kinsong. Image description. I am a brown man with bluish hair in a blue t-shirt, round glasses, and in my Zoom box I have my keyboard and a bunch of instruments like guitars and bookshelves behind me. And I'm really excited to be here and to present to you all this workshop.
Yeah, thank you all so much. We want to acknowledge that there are a number of our core creative team who are not able to be with us today, but have contributed to the project and continue to contribute in really meaningful ways. Also want to shout out to our stage manager, Kat Clark, and one of our actors and vocalist, Hannah Newhauser, who's also here to join us in conversation. So thank you to all our team present or present elsewhere. Shannon, could you get us started with an access invitation, please?
Yes, and I'm going to also go ahead and share my screen just for a moment as well. So yes, for our access invitation, we want to begin by acknowledging that there are multiple meaningful ways to share in our time together. So you may wish to leave early, come back, eat, drink, take medication, doodle, knit, my personal favorite, or stim, or do something else entirely. Access is a dance, and your improvisations are most welcome. So in order to support you, we also have a lengthy access copy that I believe Alexis has already dropped in the chat.
This is Molly. I would like to offer a content warning before we jump in. Trauma is an important access consideration, and we want you to know that this project engages painful aspects of disability history broadly and institutionalization more specifically. Please know that this information is available to you in other times and places via our access copies and over email if now is not a good time for you to be with this material. To begin with today, we're going to share a little bit about the production, and then we will invite you to participate in making art with us. Please know that this is wholly optional. we welcome varying degrees of participation and or non-participation. And we will close with some time for questions and answers. And I will pass it over to Alexis.
This is Alexis. So before we begin, we just want to pause and ask, does anyone have any accessibility requests or just anything you'd like to share with the group, anything we can be aware of as we move forward together? You're welcome to put that in the chat or in the Q&A. This could be anything. This could be if you'd like us to go more slowly, if we can repeat things, if there are trigger warnings we can keep in mind for you, anything that will help you have more access to our time together. So I'll pause for a moment. So this was a formal access check, but we consider them ongoing. So if something comes up for you and comes to mind as we continue, please let us know at any point. So to begin, I'm going to share a little bit about Kinsong, what the project is and how it got started. Shannon's going to talk a little bit about some of the elements of the production that we devised together. And then Molly's going to talk a little bit about accessibility. So there's an image on the screen right now. It's not labeled, but because I pulled the image, I know it's of Oregon State Hospital. And I'm going to describe the image further in a minute. But I want to share that Kinsong emerged out of my dissertation research. So I'm a PhD candidate in theater of dance. And I'm working on a project that considers how we represent the history of institutionalization in the United States. And part of what I'm trying to articulate is my belief that engagement with performance, which is this very embodied art form, can make the ongoing legacy of institutionalization really viscerally felt in our present moment. And so this can unsettle distinctions between what we might think of as asylums of the past and psychiatric hospitals of the present. And I think engaging with that past in an embodied fashion can also help us to cultivate embodied resources for caring for that past as we start to build disability community together. And so this image is not a great image. It's very grainy, but I love pulling it because at the front here it's what's called the Kirkbride building. There's a sort of dome. It's old-timey architecture in the front. And then because it's an aerial shot, you can start to see the brand new state hospital that was constructed in, I believe, 2013. So for me, the image really demonstrates this idea of the continuing history of institutionalization, or what some scholars would call carceral ableism in our current moment. One of the things that got me interested, could we go to the next slide, please? One of the things that got me interested in this project were these images. So these are 3 canisters. They are copper. They're about the size of a coffee can, and they're each coated in these swirling sediments of blue and pink and white mineral blooms. And they're beautiful. They're striking. They're also human remains. In fact, they're the unclaimed remains of over 3,447 people who lived and died at Oregon State Hospital from 1913 to 1974. When I came across these images and saw other people talking about them, they might be described as unsettling, as spooky, in some way. But for me, it's hard for me to describe, but the closest word I can think of is kinship. That I was just overwhelmed by a sense of kinship with these ancestors, and seeing so much of myself, albeit in altered form, in the past. Can we go to the next slide, please? And so motivated by this kinship, I wanted to do something to honor these individuals. So I actually went to Oregon. I visited what you see now on your screen, which is the Oregon State Hospital Cremains Memorial, that displays these remains and serves as the final resting place. So there are 3 walls where these canisters are stacked floor to ceiling. It was a big deal. I was, very excited, perhaps, but it felt a bit like a pilgrimage as I was on the plane, as I prepared to visit the site. Really spiritually meaningful, I suppose. And I was surprised how frustrated I was when I actually visited. I didn't know what to do with myself. I wanted to do something with my body in some way. What kind of ritual of mourning or remembrance might there be to honor these people? And so what I settled on was that we needed a performance. We needed a funeral, belated perhaps, but I think that this condition is not unique to Oregon State Hospital, as we take up in our project. There are thousands upon thousands of people in similar circumstances in state hospital cemeteries. And one of the most troubling aspects of my research has been discovering that these sites are not accidents. They're not messing up in some way. They're doing what they were intended to do. The fact that so many of these asylum cemeteries do not have gravestones is because when they were being constructed, the assumption was that there would be no one who wanted to remember. And so I think what we're trying to do with Kinsong and what we're hoping to offer here is to say that through performance, as we come together, either as creators, as audience members, the very fact of us being here demonstrates that the future that these sites imagined has not come to pass. And the future that we're manifesting together for disability communities is beautiful and full of celebration and life and honoring those who came before and envisioning just a flourishing future. And so with that in mind, we had a couple of goals for the production. Shannon, can we go to the next slide, please? So our goals were twofold. Thank you. First, we wanted to create a beautiful piece of art that honors our disability ancestors. And then we wanted to find ways to dismantle access barriers present in traditional rehearsal and production practices. So we'll briefly share a bit about both of those now. And so I will pass it to Shannon.
Thank you. All right. Okay, good. This is Shannon. So I'm going to talk about 3 kind of main elements that were part of the production. One was a memorial garland or a memorial rope that the design team and some people from the cast also helped construct. And in a left-hand image that you see now on your screen, you can see a little bit of that rope. It's covered in garlands, and also hanging from it are thin wooden plaques, and those contain the names, locations, and openings, and when applicable, the closing dates for state hospitals in the United States. And there's also dried flowers and the ancestor cards that the cast created also hanging from the rope, and we'll touch on those a little bit at the end of our talk. The memorial rope was hung in Central Park near Austin State Hospital as part of our filming, and that's also what you're seeing here too, with one of the cast members performing the movement sequence in front of it. Before I get to the movement, on the right side of the screen, you'll see a silhouette of a tree with all of its branches kind of like moving, bending in different directions, and a silhouette of a butterfly. And that is part of the shadow puppets that are included in the production. And the shadow puppet sequence is beautiful. It's accompanied also by a poem. And it is kind of meant in a part of the production as a way to embody an imagined story or something that we wish we could have learned from our disability ancestors. So that is the second element I'll talk about. And then lastly, which I'll direct your attention back to the left-hand image, the cast member in the front is doing in the middle of a movement sequence. So it's a white woman with a colorful shirt on and jeans, and one of her arms is stretched out diagonally towards the ground in front of her body. And Molly and I helped kind of compose these movement sequences together with the cast based on reflections on what we all do within our families, our own cultures as processes of mournings or for funerals. And from those reflections, we built different gestures and strung them together to make 3 different movement sequences. And those were performed as a ritual of mourning in our individual spaces, filmed that way, and then also throughout the geography of Austin State Hospital. And I think actually in the next slide, yes, there's another image I'll describe of kind of that last element of the ritual of mourning that was performed throughout the different locations. So in front of a green iron gate that says the words ASH Cemetery, short for Austin State Hospital Cemetery, which is kind of was the focus of the work. There are 4 of the ensemble members walking in a single file along the sidewalk, and they are caught in mid gesture. So each of their hands are at someplace near or leaving their crossbody from touching their shoulder. That makes sense. So yes, that's an image of kind of what that process looked like. And now, if I haven't forgotten anything, I think that should be good. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Molly to talk a little bit about the accessibility strategies we use in rehearsals.
This is Molly. As Alexis mentioned just a moment ago, traditional theater is full of access barriers for both audiences and participants. And we have tried to build accessibility into this project from the start, both in terms of the final production itself and also in our rehearsal and creation process. We began with generating shared community agreements, which is an image that is on the screen, is of a Google Jamboard with many different colored virtual Post-it notes put into a heart in the bubble that says, "What do we need to be our best selves?" So on there is a sort of collaborative sharing from the ensemble and company members. Throughout rehearsals, we did our best to maintain flexibility with rehearsal attendance, which is definitely not standard traditional theater practice. We started rehearsals with access checks, much as we did today, and we worked in and across different spaces. For the final productions, we have really tried to explore image descriptions as a form of poetic artistry in themselves, and we have created a companion website that hosts additional accessibility materials, and we will give you more information on how to access the companion website before we leave today. And I think we will now kind of transition into the second part of our time together, which is doing a little bit of scene work. And I will pass it back over to Shannon.
All right, this is Shannon. I'm just stopping sharing screen now. Um, so yeah, we're going to look a little bit into what that making, devising process looked like in rehearsals, and we're going to share some of these strategies with you. So before we begin, again, we want to honor everyone's access needs. So please participate or observe in whatever way feels best to you. We've also included written instructions in the access copy that are happy to repeat, rephrase, demonstrate, or answer any questions that come up along at any point. And Alexis, I'll pass it over to you to take it away.
Excellent. Trying to think how I want to frame this. We want to kind of share maybe what it was like to be in our rehearsal process, as Shannon said. And something that came up for us that was beautiful and that we were delightfully surprised by was the ways the process challenged us to rethink some conversations in theater and performance right now. So something that is, I think, very needed in theater and performance is conversations around who gets to tell the story. This is in response to ongoing, very painful acts of appropriation that continue, particularly in U.S. theater. And so those are part of our concerns. What we learned together and discovered is also a conversation about who has to tell the story or who is holding the story. Because we're working with a cast of both disabled and non-disabled artists. For some folks, the story is quite close to home. And so the idea of holding that story and reperforming it could be injurious or difficult. And so we started to develop a sort of approach drawn from what's sometimes called theater as service. But this idea that we can pass stories back and forth between ourselves as performers, that we can hold each other's stories for a moment, reflect back, revise, and find different ways to share and to affirm the art worthiness of our shared experiences. And so that's a bit of the vein in which I think we're working today. And we want to share that with you and maybe give a little piece of art to you on this afternoon. So in order to begin, we're going to ask for some suggestions from you. Again, you're welcome to participate or not, depending on what is good for you right now. But I would like to suggest that if you are interested in participating, it could be helpful to have some paper and something to write or draw with. So that's some paper or something to write or draw with. So I'm going to pause and give us a second to grab some things if needed. While we're doing that, I'm going to type some prompts that we might need in a minute. All right. So I have the prompts written down in the chat if that's helpful for you to reference. I'll also say that if you're like me and like written instructions, we do have all the exercises described in that access copy and available to you. So here's how this game works. You have your paper, and your paper is your map. That could mean many things. I want to encourage you to work with whatever you think that means. When I say your paper is your map, whatever comes to mind is how I mean. Okay. I also want to note that we will be asking you to share if you're comfortable. So you can share as much or as little as you want. You can be as specific or vague as you want. If it's helpful to be fictional, imagination can be a wonderful way to access truth. So all of those options are available to you. So again, your paper is your map. I'm going to verbalize these 3 prompts in the chat, and I want you to draw where that is on your map. Again, you're drawing whatever that means to you. So the first part, or the first prompt, is draw a time or a place where you felt safe. Draw a time or a place where you felt safe. And that first thing that popped into your head, that was good enough. We'll take about a minute with each one. And maybe you're not done yet, and that's okay. We'll make a lot of unfinished things today. So our second prompt is a time or a place when you felt challenged. That's a time or a place when you felt challenged. And our last one is a time or place when you felt joy. All right, go ahead and close out. What you have is enough. And Molly is going to take us through the next step.
This is Molly. I am participating as well and was just looking at something that I drew and was reminded of the words of Quinn, another one of our core creative team members, who would say, "Let it be what it be." So I will offer that as we move on. For this next point, for this next part, we are going to add on with 6-word stories. So this is an exercise you might be familiar with that kind of pops up in different places. So we will generate a little bit of text. This does not need to be anything fancy. It's whatever comes to mind. Please know that we will ask you to share these 6-word stories with the group, but you will not be asked to share any meaning or background story to what you have written. For each of the locations on your map, so you have 3 now, Write a 6-word sentence that captures in some way what that time or location means to you. You can describe an image or a feeling. You can give that location a title. You can write something else altogether. We encourage you to embrace the artistic challenge of making each sentence exactly 6 words.
Let's take maybe one more minute. And then if you're comfortable, let's do this. What I'd like to ask everyone to do is to type into the chat if you're willing to offer one of your 6-word stories to us to play with. We'll use this to make a performance. So if you could type in the chat and just let us know which of those categories it belongs to. So safe, challenge, or joy. And I'll start to compose our script rather quickly. Maddie, can you tell us which category that goes in? That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I am less familiar with Zoom, so I may be wrong. I think if you're also wanting to share, but maybe not wanting the whole group to have your name with it, I believe if you put it in question and answer, that limits who sees it. And you're also welcome to send it to just me if that feels more comfortable. Thank you for these joys. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay. We'll go ahead and move with this. We have some nice symmetry in our poem at the moment. But if you find yourself struck by a need to see a sentence included, please let us know. So this is going to be the text that we work with. And then again, going with this idea of sort of sharing and holding each other's stories, Molly and Shannon have graciously offered to be our performers today. So here's what I'd like to offer. I will read the safe, challenge, and joy. And then Shannon, could you take the first line of the text for each one? And then Molly, can you take the second? Okay. So we call this a shared poem. So we will do our vocal performance for you presently. Okay. Molly, you're muted, just so you know. Got you. Okay. Safe.
It was so warm there together.
This isn't the land of kings.
Challenge.
Feeling too sharp and too soft.
Maybe I can do more now.
Joy.
Unbridled and unrestrained expressions of passion.
I never knew joy until now.
Okay, awesome. So that's our the basis of our scene that we will work with. And so I'm going to pass it to Shannon now because we're going to try to embody a bit of this.
So this is Shannon. So yes, now we're going to try to embody and add another layer to our poem. And basically, we will create a gesture for each of our sentences. So all the 6 phrases, all the 6 words together. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alexis. We want to do this for our individual 6-word stories, right? Or should we work from our poem?
I think let's work from our poem.
Okay.
And I wonder if I could ask each of you to could Molly and Shannon, could each of you take a moment to come up with a gesture for each of the lines you speak, and then we might play with contrast and then ask for some input from our friends.
Sure. So yeah, I'll describe, I guess, like a little bit of just, this was kind of also part of the rehearsal process with creating those movement phrases I described earlier. But we'd each just kind of take a moment to come up with a simple movement. And it doesn't have to be impressive, it's a gesture. So, whatever makes sense or whatever part of your body is accessible to you in that moment. And just whatever reflect, again, like what Alexa said earlier, what if it makes sense to you? It makes sense. And there hasn't have to be really a reason behind it. All right. For it was so warm there together, I might do something like this. And then Molly, sorry.
I will unmute, but you got to see that was my gesture for the lines of This Isn't the Land of Kings.
So warm there together. And then my next line is feeling too sharp and too soft. So I'm thinking I have my forearms stacked on top of them. So I think I might bring up one and then go down, go up like a clock, one part of my forearm, and then slink it.
Maybe I can do more now.
And then joy. Unbridled and unrestrained expressions of passion.
I never knew joy until now.
Awesome. Okay, so thinking on the fly here. Let's go through and do that with the gestures. And then I have a challenge for you, and then I need some help from the audience, okay?
Okay.
Safe. Challenge. Joy. Awesome. Okay, sorry, I got so into it. I forgot I had lines. Excellent. Okay.
Improv, devised theater. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna throw a challenge out, but take it if you want it and leave it if you don't. I'm trying to think of ways. So something that's emerging is I think there's a nice fluidity between what's happened. I'm perceiving a bit of exchange, and so I'm wondering if there's places either to build contrast. So we're both in profile. Is that are other options accessible to us at the moment? If not, that's fine. And then I'm also wondering about choreographing cameras and angles and things like that, if that is of interest to you and available to you. Okay, so at this point, we're gonna ask for, thank you, Ollie, that's a good idea. I think I might do that too. What we'd like to do is you might notice that this is quite visually driven, and for that reason can be quite inaccessible, particularly for folks who are blind or low vision. But I'll also just say for myself, as someone who identifies with mental disability, you know, I find image descriptions immensely helpful and artful in showing me points of attention that might have escaped me, and can be a way of inviting us into the work. So next part of our process involves generating image descriptions. And again, these are, in a traditional theater process, we would complete the project and then hand it off to someone to do that description work. But we want to approach it more as the script itself. How can we start to think of this as poetry? So what I'd like to do now is ask, I'll go off camera here, but you'll still hear my voice. But I'd like to ask Shannon and Molly to perform each gesture from those stories in sequence. And then ask us if you have an idea for how we might sort of succinctly, so keeping within that 6-word range, describe that gesture or movement that's going to actually replace the sentences and become the text of our piece. So with that said, Shannon, can you start us off with that first gesture? So safe. Lovely. Can you do that again, but perhaps in slow motion? Excellent. Who can give us an imperfect suggestion for how we might describe it? Shannon, can I, yeah, can we repeat a bit? I realized I did that bad thing where I asked for help with an instruction and didn't demonstrate it. But Maddie has come in to save the day. Excellent. So Maddie says, Shannon places her left arm on her right shoulder and wraps her right arm around herself while turning to the right. Excellent. So I'm going to type that down. Shannon, you'll notice that's quite a bit of text. So if you want to shorten or slow or repeat your movement to hold that, that could be good. Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Dell'Antonio and Molly. Those are also, and like what a great demonstration of the breadth of what we can do with this. Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate clear naming rules. Okay, so Molly, can you do your second gesture there? No worries, Maddie. We will correct in process. So Molly, what's that second gesture? Excellent. So how might we describe this? Thanks, Maddie. Molly, can you do this one more time? Excellent. Andrew, I think we would be helped by yours if you have it. Okay. Oh, ooh, yes. Wing, what a beautiful descriptor. Yeah, beautiful, very poetic. For the sake of time, because I know where we're going and I want to give this to the group, Molly and Shannon, would you, for the remaining 4, do self-descriptions? So this is challenge, feeling too sharp and too soft.
Brings forearm and hand in a blade-like position up to 12 o'clock and lets it slither like a snake.
Fists push open palm across frame.
Can you repeat that, Molly?
Yes, I apologize for the chainsaw in the background. It is not part of my description. Fist, push, open palm across frame.
Is it pushes open palm?
I said push, but you
Open
can take some artistic liberties.
Okay. Fist, push, open palm across.
Push, open palm across frame.
Right. Excellent. Shannon, what's your joy image description?
Arms and fists outstretched and pulls towards camera, face in camera.
All right. Excellent. I'm shortening a couple of these for time. Excellent. Okay. So this is our revised script. We'll go through and do it once, and then I'm going to ask Ali to jump in with some improvised underscoring to hopefully give a sense of how we can uplift these stories and make a little bit of art. So Ali will let them go through and do basically a rehearsal. And then after they do that once, we'll come back and add in the music. Okay. So, Shannon, you are muted.
All right. Are you going to say safe again, or should we just do
Yeah, I'm going to do the titles, though I welcome friendly amendments. Okay. Safe.
Places left arm on right shoulder and wraps the right arm around while turning to the left.
Raise wing, forehead slide, round shoulder.
Challenge.
Brings forearm, arm, and hand in blade-like position up to 12 o'clock and lets it slither like a snake.
Fist, push open palm across frame.
Joy.
Arms and fists outstretched, pulls face in camera.
Head falls easily into palm, big smile.
Oh, excellent save. Thank you, friends. I didn't realize I didn't write that last one down. Thank you, thank you. Okay, excellent. Okay, so we're gonna call this the quote final performance here. So we're gonna go ahead and bring Ollie's music in. What I'd like to invite, although Ollie, tell me if you have different needs, is that maybe actually Ollie starts and can make an initial offer with the music. And then Molly and Shannon maybe sit with the music for a minute. And maybe find in some spaces where you can consider the music the third character on stage. So are there maybe some strategic silences or changes in pace that it's inviting? And then together we'll magically find an ending together, and we will all know it is the end and it will be over. Okay? Sound good enough to try?
Do you want to still do image descriptions or just listen to the music?
Image descriptions for sure. And then actually, could we check levels for a second? Ollie, could you just do a little playing and see if we can hear spoken over? Can you hear me when I speak? Can you hear me when I speak? I'm actually singing, but kind of in a Rex Harrison way. Okay, excellent, excellent. So, toning, that's great. I'm going to go away. Ollie, you decide if you want to be on camera or not. This is our piece to you. So let's watch. Safe.
Place his left arm on right shoulder and wraps right arm around while turning to the left.
Raise wing, forehead slide, round shoulder.
Challenge.
Brings forearm and hand in blade-like position up to 12 o'clock and lets it slither like a snake.
Fist, push open frame, open palm across frame.
Joy.
Arms and fists outstretched. Pulls face and camera.
Head falls easily into palm, faces camera, big smile.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Thank you, friends. Excellent ending there. Good yes ending for sure. Cool. So we hope maybe you saw a bit of an artifact or a trace of what y'all shared with us in that. And maybe that gives you a sense of the kind of playful process that we had in ways that, again, we were trying to think about accessibility as a meaningful artistic tool and something that can add depth and texture to our artwork while also being more inclusive. So with that said, we are going, we've got about 10 minutes left, so I'd like to pass it to Shannon.
Yes, this is Shannon. So thank you so much for sharing in our performance. And we'd like to also now invite some space for reflection. So we'd love to hear what your experience was like, either participating if you however much you did on your own, or as an audience, and to each other's work and to kind of what we built quickly here today.
Yeah, and Shannon, if I can add, it occurs to me if perhaps you are like me and when asked feel pressure to offer something, it is a genuine invitation. We just want to make sure that we're making space for you if that feels right. And so, I just noticed there's an allow to talk button. So I think if you want to type or talk something, those are options available. Ollie, you have a question.
I have a question. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. How, like what you, Dr. Delantonio, you mean just now what we did? And how what we just did influenced? Okay, yeah. So I actually, when I went off camera, was messing around while they were rehearsing underneath the texture on muted on Zoom. I wanted, so the first word was, remind me what the first word was again? It was safe, right? So I knew safe. I wanted to feel something tonally like pleasant. So I started like with the one of the key I chose, E flat, and then I knew like going to the challenge that I wanted to have some more dissonance and a cluster. So I went closer to B flat. Started lingering because there was some oh, thank you, I can turn it up. So I in the second part challenge, I knew I wanted to go to something a little bit more tense, and then coming out of it, I wanted to find a path back to E flat that came like, but I didn't want to land there too soon. I wanted to land there actually when Molly did the hand gesture, so I timed it by just doing a bunch of like passing chords and things like that. And then I waited for Molly, and then I landed on the E flat at the end there. So that was what was going on in my head while they were performing. Um, I've had a lot of experience doing that, especially on Zoom. So at this point, to me, I forget like that's a real skill for me to like market and curate for myself. I'm like, yeah, this is a thing I can do. So it's really fun to do. So that was my process.
That is super impressive. Yeah. Oh man, just so glad you're here. Excellent.
Exactly. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Molly, do you want to transition us to questions? I mean, it's sort of an extension of what we've already been doing, I suppose.
Yeah, this is Molly. I think if there's any other kind of questions around the work, or kind of going all the way back to the beginning today about the project in general, I don't know if we still have anyone from our ensemble here, but we could definitely open this up as in a larger discussion as well. If there were questions about participation in the project from the other side. So I think we have a little bit of time for questions, and then Alexis will offer some show information.
Yeah. In this moment, I'm realizing that all of my teacher training taught me how to do the waited out thing where you like ask a question and you need to wait longer than you think you do. I've not encountered anything that's like, how do you wait it out, but not in a way that makes people feel like they have to say anything. So if someone has the accessible pedagogy handout on that, please send it my way. Oh, thank you, Dr. Nick. It says, Alexis, did the final project feel as you wanted it to at the end? I don't know if I'll be able to answer that question for 6 months. I will say that the moments that resonated with me were not the ones I expected, but I also take more time to process. So it's not unusual for me to not really have a sense of physical or emotional sensation in the moment. But I do know, and part of this actually, Hannah's in the room with us, and it was Hannah's ukulele playing. On our last day of rehearsal, we just spent time doing a very similar exercise to what we did here, but we asked the ensemble to create something that they wanted to leave each other with. And so in some ways, I never feel sure about the product, but I know I felt very connected to the process, and to the folks in the room, and their bravery, and just generosity of spirit. And then I will say, when we were filming on location in Central Park by Austin State Hospital, we had the memorial garland hung. And it, again, as Shannon said, had the plaques with all the state hospital names. And right after we hung it, for 5 minutes after, as we were trying to light candles, out of nowhere, the wind was just whipping around. And they were, going this way and that, and tangling into each other. And it was just so visceral, the feeling on my skin. And I don't want to over narrate that, but I will acknowledge my temptation and intense desire to say that perhaps we were not alone in that moment, in ways that felt quite meaningful to me. Thank you for the questions. Thank you so much for coming again this week of all weeks, and for sharing a little making with us. Shannon, I'm wondering if we could get that last slide up just so folks have access to our closing information here. We just wanted to let you know that the production is streaming from December 2nd to, that slide is wrong, it is December 4th. So it's online, but December 2nd through December 4th, they have specific times. And then December 6th through 12th, it's on demand. So you can watch it whenever you like. It's 26 minutes long. If you want tickets, you can visit jointhedrama.org. We also have a companion website with some souvenirs. So Shannon, I think, had alluded to some ancestor cards that we made as part of our process. And that's some artwork that's available at kin-song.com. If you happen to be out and about on campus this Wednesday and Thursday from 10 to 2, we'll also be parked outside of Winship, which is the theater building, with actual physical copies of these cards if you'd like to stop by and get a souvenir from the production. But with that said, I'm very proud to have come in right at 2:15. We're very grateful to share space with you, and wish you a wonderful day.
Thank you everyone for showing up and doing this. It was beautiful and I started tearing up and I'm glad I wasn't on screen. This is just a beautiful presentation and I'm sure many people will be watching this presentation afterwards. So thank you again for presenting and showing up and being so open and creative, and my anxiety is like through the roof watching you all do this on the spot. This is like, I'm so impressed. Yeah, it was just lovely and beautiful. So thank you so much. And we will be posting this on the TCDS website under our YouTube channel. And we will send you the links too so that you also have it. But that is all we have. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you to the audience for being here. And there will be so many more audience members that will see this later on, I'm sure. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank